As long as DXY is headed up, we'll be good. So we got a 1 minute gap right here, traded up into the sibi, and then we broke away. Now I am expecting this candle to close, and we form a gap here. We can use that to take short, looking for the 5-point mark, which is plenty of movement down into, there is a gap right here that's been left unfilled. We could use that as partial points, and then obviously the sell side down here on ES is equivalent to the one on NQ. Traded about trade up into gap there. So trade up into the tiny gap. We want to see that used as resistance, and then we head lower. So watch this gap right here. Now looking for the 5 points lower, which at a minimum is right there, which should be easily hit. Let me just adjust these limits. And then NQ, let's see, we just filled the gap right there, looking for 20 points to the downside, which is easily about to be hit. I'd even look for 40 maybe. I think 40 is a good target. So right around there. Yes, about to smack through its low. Now there's a tiny gap right here that I do want to see a trade through, right in here. So I'll mark out the low really quick. This low end is what I want to see a candle body close through, and then that should sweep all the way down into, yep, there's 5 points about to be. We also have short-term sell side right here that could be used as a partial. So past the 5 points, this is what I'm looking for as a minimum. 45.34. I'll send it over to predictions as well. And then after that, we have the gap at 29. So there is the 5 points. I want to see continuation down into 34. There's a good continuation. Now you can see the breakaway gap that we left up here as well. Now before 10:10, we should easily get this low. So you can see 950 macro to 10:10 is the imbalance to liquidity. So imbalance was filled right here. You can see another imbalance was filled. We closed below the X, this X line, which is what I wanted to see. Got our 5 points, and I do want to see the liquidity attacked. That's the external range liquidity outside of where the 950 macro started. So 34s I think is a great minimum. Let's check on NQ really quick. About to hit their 40-point range nicely. And there we go. So there is the low right there. Just beautiful, beautiful price action. Definitely not algorithmic. No, algo's here. NQ just smacking right through the low. I'll screenshot this. Oops, wrong picture. There we go. And there is ES probably attacking their low. There you go. Hope you guys are able to capture that. Now I'm still looking for this gap potentially filled on ES. So I have my last limit order. I'll send a screenshot over to predictions or to futures trades of the demo I took. So I entered with 4 contracts. Currently break even stop on the last one. Looking for the sell side, or the gap rather. So there is the futures trades picture. Hopefully, if it wants to load, there we go. So take a look at futures trades if you want. That's the demo trade in. Extremely quick movement. So this is why I love those macros. It's just beautiful price action, just quick delivery to from top to bottom. I feel like it's been a lot of shorts recently with those 950 macros. I feel like my videos recently have just all been quick shorts. It is what it is. So there's a tiny gap here. We're filling now. Now we have 2 minutes till the silver bullet. So we'll see if that wants to potentially do anything. I'll close out the last demo trade there. And I'll just wait for silver bullet. We'll see if that gives a setup that's still continue the downside, or if we want to reverse, then I'm fine with the hourly gap up here being hit. Looks like CL also gave a good 950 macro trade right there. Good 30 points, maybe 20 points. NQ traded right down to their 40-point mark, right? Just as we anticipated, right down to their 40 points. Now ES is lagging behind, so if we do in fact want the sell side down here from, what is this, 38, 36, 836, then expect ES to catch up. So we'll see larger displacement candles downwards, probably closing through this bisi with 1 candle, maybe 2, and then we attack the sell side at 14, 45.14, and then NQ down at 401, which looks like we're doing right now. Now we are within silver bullet time. Let me look for more. Let me clear these out actually so it's not as confusing. Hopefully it's not too messy. What was it doing? Oh yeah. Alright, downside targets. So beyond here we do have sell side all the way lower at 340-ish. We mark that out. 339.50. So right there. I'm gonna let Mark send that to predictions as well. Is it 15.339? Now, it is silver bullet hour. So we'll see if, so macro requirements were hit. You can see we filled the gap, took out liquidity. Those are the 2 things that are required within a macro. Sometimes, you know, you'll have runs where this occurs, where you can capture some of that movement. Sometimes it'll just chop around because there's liquidity and an imbalance within a, you know, 3 or 4 point range on ES. So it'll won't give a good entry. But I think the part that people are missing with the macros is if you can find a direction prior to the macro. So if you look at the Q&A post that I did probably a month or 2 back, it's called a high probability macro signature, and that picture indicates the direction before the macro starts, we have consolidation, preferably right before. Then we have a Judas swing up into an imbalance, and then you can use that into liquidity targets. Now, assuming this candle has to hold, then we'll be looking for a gap to form, and then we can take that, looking for 20 points on NQ, and then potentially, excuse me, 15,339. I want to make sure DXY is popping up still. Looks like we are. Only problem is this is a 5-minute chart, so we've got gaps in here that could indicate that we might want to move back lower, which would reverse on the indices as well. So now watch how we react to this bisi. Preferably we would trade all the way through, at least closing below 50%. Let me measure that out really quick. So below 27.50 would be preferred with a candle body. Most optimally we trade all the way through it, because you can see NQ is, whoops, that's not NQ, this is NQ. We're just attacking the low. So there's a gap right here that we formed. So I'll be looking to see if we want to trade back up into there, which should be more than 20 points to the low. Yeah, so 30 points to the low. I'm fine with taking that. CES forming a tiny gap, and looks like we're trying to close below there. So there's the hopefully close below. I want to see this close below 27.50, 27.50. There is one, let's see where the close is. 27 even. Nice. So there's a gap right here. Some interest to me. NQ still got their gap up here. I'll put an alarm really quick. Then stop would probably be above this high at 454. Watch as we trade all the way through this gap, hopefully. Now, if we don't trade below this gap, that is large SMD divergence, right? So, excuse me. So, NQ will most likely take out their sell side, and then ES, if we want to reverse here, that's large indication that ES will want to climb all the way back into their hourly gap. So, see what we want to do here. So we're closing below. NQ gave no entry into the sibi, but still attacking their swing low. ES close below right there. Now if you look at the 2 minute, there should be a gap right there. 3 minute most likely, yep, gap forming. No, I wish I didn't close on my last contract. All good. Because there's no entry yet. But we'll probably still get one. Gotta be patient. NQ approaching the low at 401. And there is the low smack through. So there's the 8:36 AM low. So sweeping through it right now. Still no entry point. We've just been displacing low of resistance liquidity. So this is exactly what you want to see when you're trading ICT concepts, is these lower resistance liquidity signatures, where it's just a fill, one fill right there, another fill right here, right at 959, and then we just displace all the way lower into liquidity without a lot of high resistance moves. So high resistance move will be something like this, where you have lots of bounces and maybe a higher retracement to run out stops, and then we go back lower, something like that. That's like what a high resistance liquidity signature is, where you're filling gaps, maybe running stops. It's a lot of struggle to get lower, right? When you have low resistance, it's just like this. You fill gap, gap fill, and then we just displace. You can even here, it's like a good 10 points, right? So just between those two price movements, you have multiple partials you could have taken. Even on NQ, you can see we filled that gap here with the 950. Technically here, we started 950, we filled this gap, gave another secondary entry, and before 1010, we slammed all the way. If you want to take this point all the way down here, 136 points, even from here. So if you were to take in that entry on NQ instead of ES, you're looking at almost five partials. Almost five partials. Obviously, entered from here then would be less, but if we're looking at the 2-minute gap, so now we close below this bisi. I want to see you use as inversion on the 1 minute. There's a 2-minute gap there, 3-minute. We'll see if you want to get into that bisi. Preferably we climb and tap into it, and you can use that as your entry point. Now, south side below here. Now, if you look here on the 50-minute chart, so you have a run on stops right here, right? So you have a swing low, it's formed, we come up, fill a gap, and then we take out the swing low again. So as soon as we get closer and closer to 505, it'll be more and more high resistance is my thought process. So low resistance liquidity is something like this, where you have, let me draw it over here, where you have lows that have been left untapped, right? So if you think about it as trailed stop losses, so if someone who's long sees this, they'll trail their stop loss up, up, and up. Same thing if you flip this around, right? You have downside movement like this. People are trailing their stop losses here and here, and it's all low resistance liquidity. So there's the entry point on NQ. Let me go back to that. Look at actual price action. So we'll see now. I don't want to see a cross above here, preferably. This is my stop loss point. Technically a market structure shift. This is your intermediate term high. You can see there's a gap here, tapped into it, and then we displace lower. That's also your breaker formation. So when you have a breaker here, when we cross above the breaker, that's a extremely, extremely strong indication that we're flipping market structure. So going back to what I was saying, that low resistance is great for, the algorithm. Basically, it just pumps right through all of the low resistance liquidity. What you don't want to see is more considered as high resistance is you have stops here like this. So you're trailing stops right there, and then we see a dip lower to clear it out, and then we continue higher. This low now becomes high resistance because we swept out the low. So think about it as who's been making money the most. Obviously not these long holders, because they just got stopped out. So if anything, I think this would be your target, and then as soon as we get to lower in between, so after we sweep that low, expect a lot of retracements, potentially back up into more gaps, and then if we want to head lower, it would be a lot of struggle and resistance. So ES, we are tapping within the bisi here. 2-minute gap. There's also one 2-minute gap up here that I'm assuming we're going to probably tap into, since we did close above this one. So watch this gap right here, which we did tap into it slightly. I'm just assuming this is a retracement for now, not a reversal. as long as we don't take out that high on NQ. I'll put an alarm above here. Tapping into the bisi as well, the inversion for value gap, right? Now, if you took that gap here, looking for 5 points, roughly down to there, obviously 14, 45, 14 would be your secondary target. I just think it's interesting that ICT concepts are basically just retail concepts flipped on its head. Like if you really think about it, like people are buying and selling at the ranges, the range high and low, because they think of support and resistance. So retail traders, non-ICT traders, are buying and selling, you know, on the bounces of the London swing high. So say that was your resistance point. You can see we just swept the liquidity technically, but retail would see that as bouncing. While ICT concepts and ICT students, they enter in between. They favor those range movements between the high and low where they can find entry points into where retail traders are waiting for it to go. We're anticipating it's going to go down there, and that liquidity, I guess, is our exit fill rather than you know, our entry. So yes, we did trade all the way up into the gap. I want to see us close below. So there's a tiny bisi here. Let me remove these annotations. You can see. So right here, there's a tiny gap. Those three candles are fair value gap. Now, I want to see us close below it, preferably if you want to, you know, remain bearish. I want to see this PD array broken. So you can anticipate that kind of stuff because we know 10 a.m. we displaced lower. We got our retracement up into fair value gap. This is basically just seen as just a bump in the road, I would say, because our overall liquidity objective, I think for me right now, would be 45.14, especially since NQ swept it and has more liquidity that's low resistance lower. ES should close below this gap. It's just seen as a speed bump since we didn't break market structure, right? So I wouldn't buy this for value gap to go long. I'd be waiting for it to trade below the discount end into the 5 points and then into sell side here and sell side down here, which looks like it's doing magically. So there's the 5 points from the silver bullet entry. Now I'd be looking for yeah, the 45.14. So if we get that, I'll just call it a day because we're 2 for 2, and I don't want to end off on a bad note. I think that's perfect price action for the morning. That's literally like all you can ask for. And what did I say about this gap, right? So here's your discount end right here. You can see we closed right below it. We are tapping back into the bisi nonetheless, but swept out the 5 points, which was your minimum for a partial, right? And I do want to see it maybe tap into this bisi once more and then head back lower. But as a minimum, it did provide. So, and we closed below that gap. So I'm fine with that now. We'll see where it wants to continue. I'm assuming, excuse me, I'm assuming before 10:30 we will get this sell side taken. That's my preference, is before 10:30, and then 10:50 macro or whatever wants to reverse. Then I'm completely fine with that. We'll check back on NQ really quick. So NQ didn't break above their market structure shift here. We did close below the bisi here, and above the sibi. So it is a little bit lower probability, in my opinion, on NQ. you can see here we are starting to dip lower on DXY. So it's switched to low probability environment right now. I'm going to close out this last one. I don't really care if it runs all the way to the sell side now. Low probability is just not something I want to stay in. So I'll send a screenshot of the tiny silver bullet trade. It was still profitable, but probably closed a little bit too early, which is fine. Let me screenshot this entire thing. You can see. So there's the entry and exits. Send it over in futures trades. So I just sent it over. So there's the entry and exits. Yeah, I got that first entry target filled on the 5 points, and then I closed out the last contract because of DXY, which it looks like now we're popping up. So I'm glad I closed that out. I don't want to be sitting in this, especially if we're closer to the sell side liquidity. Now I was speaking about. Let me remove all this mess. Okay, so I was speaking about the SMT divergence earlier, with the sell side being taken on NQ and it creating SMT right here. Remove all this stuff. So the SMT right here, you can see it. There's the market structure shift. So expect ES now to climb faster than NQ is. So NQ went all the way down so to the sell side. ES failed to, which means it's showing more of a strength and willingness to move up. So expect it to go for 45.51. I'm sending that over to predictions right now. All right, so just look at predictions chat if you're interested. So we have a breaker here, high, low, lower, low. Last two up close candles. Now if we're looking at these time frames, I'm not seeing any fair value gaps. Tiny one right here that's about to be formed, but we do have a 1 minute gap as well. That's going to be formed on that. So excuse me, look for 15,493 as a buy side liquidity. Buy side liquidity appear at 1541, obviously 83. But yeah, I'm expecting ES to climb faster than NQ now. So with SMT especially, watch the high up here. I'll put an alarm. I'm probably not going to take any more trades. I got exactly what I wanted. I think I executed according to my rules perfectly. And silver bullet I got short, so I'm not going to take a silver bullet long, even if this plays out right here. We do have a fair value gap right here, so watch that. Remove all this stuff. Let me send that over to predictions. So yeah, watch that. The low right here would be your stop loss, but expect this to probably give 10 points at a minimum. 5 points obviously would be your dead minimum, but I think 10 points is not bad because you do have an intermediate term high right here. Could be seen as buy side. We also have a gap within here, so maybe just the 5 points. We'll just look for 5 points with this. So right in that 5 minute gap right there. Obviously I'm not going to take long here with demo because I said earlier I took short with this right here. So we're not going to go long with that. 1050 macro, I will send my thoughts. Same thing with 1150 macro if it's clean enough, which it looks like, despite being NFP today, we still got some very, very clean price action. I think this is probably the cleanest morning that we got the entire week. Let's look at CL really quick. Yeah, nothing. So I hope you guys were able to learn something or capture something from those moves this morning. If you have any questions about any of that, DM me. I'm probably just going to end the stream here. I don't want to wait another 30 minutes for us to chop around, especially if we're in a low probability environment, which it looks like we might be approaching. So yeah, I'll send my predictions over to the chat for 1050 macro and 1150 macro if it's clean enough. I got my 2 trades in, both profitable, so I'm extremely happy with that. Yeah, so if I don't speak with you today, then I will see you guys most likely on Monday or Tuesday, since it's a little bit of a less news impacted week. So until then, good luck and good trading, be safe, and I will see you guys next week.